I am here to share a story that centers around the life of a young girl from the heart of Limpopo in South Africa. Meet Abby, born to an 18-year-old girl from a humble family. She grew up understanding that her mother did something very bad that led to her birth, and now they had to be separated due to that mistake. Her mother had to go to school and everything would be okay. That was her basic understanding of everything, because certain things were never spoken about, and this seemed generational. There was a realization and an understanding that some things she would have to learn on her own as time passed. So, by the age of 8 years old, even though she did not know why, she learned 3 things. People are either regarded as sane or crazy, and the reason for their craziness is witchcraft. Or, they are born crazy and we consider them disabled. A child is either troublesome or good. The second thing she learned was sexual health was never taught about or spoken about. Just don't get pregnant. And if you do get pregnant, you'll figure out how you got pregnant when you get there. The third thing is we don't talk about the 4-letter word, AIDS. No one speaks about that. We are scared of it, we gossip about it, we judge people for it, and we'll know they will die because they were stupid and went to the city, and now their children will have to grow up without parents. But how they got it, how their stupidity could have been circumvented, is never spoken about or taught so we can make better choices. The community had a looming air of survival in it. Most women were single mothers raising children who could not make the same mistakes that they did. But the children were unaware of what happened. What was the mistake? They were raising children who had to survive by any means necessary, with education being the key to economic emancipation, but while making sure that the home is a place to survive and not to learn. Women had to raise a generation of children that would hopefully endure less, but also bearing the brunt of carrying the feelings of those around them, with little space or time to examine their own feelings. Her aunt, who had a career, who was successful, who was educated, suddenly went crazy after an abusive marriage. Despite this context, no one investigated or investigated her situation. They just quickly accepted that she was crazy because of witchcraft. To be fair, on their part, they didn't really have much education, specifically on mental health. This lack of mental health education exacerbated the societal challenges and issues that were already there. My name is Abby, or as you know me, Shudu, and this is my story. Next door to us was a young girl, and for the purpose of this talk, I will call her Mpho. At the tender age of 10 years old, she was thrust into adulthood, a circumstance dictated by societal pressures and norms that urgently needed to be addressed. Mpho shouldered the dual responsibility of a mother and a breadwinner to her 2 younger brothers, a role that forced her to navigate the complexities of childhood, while also shouldering the weighty responsibility of an adult. Her resilience was remarkable, but the challenges she faced were daunting. She would miss school during her menstrual cycle, a stark reminder of the challenges that young girls face today. On test days, desperation led her to use newspapers as makeshift sanitary pads, a poignant symbol of how simple issues can escalate into complex challenges that girls in my community face. Her story took a turn that was all too common, but yet no less heartbreaking. Mpho left school, got married, succumbing to societal pressures that dictated her future. Her decision mirrored the harsh realities that many young girls face in our society, where education is hailed as the key to liberation, but is often out of reach due to deep-rooted structural barriers. Tragically, one of her brothers, caught in a cycle of poverty and a lack of guidance, has been in and out of prison, a victim and a perpetrator of the very injustices that our communities battle against. Mpho's story is a stark illustration of a young girl who was denied her fundamental human rights and whose mental health was neglected. From the age of 10, she was put through the unimaginable, yet society's immediate inclination was to shape her story as one of resilience, overlooking the profound neglect on her mental health. I've come to learn through my own journey of the psychological ramifications of children not having their primary caregivers, both mother and father, and how that can affect their life outcomes. Some answer the call in a false sense of resilience, like Mpho did. She eventually gave up, though, and got married so she could have a better life. while others, like her brother, become troublemakers and as he began to cause havoc in the community, like the internal psychological havoc that was going on within him. In both cases, their mental health was neglected. In shaping the story, there's a heroism and a narrative of resilience. When had their mental health been accounted for, if they had the right access to mental health support, and essentially we protected their human rights, we wouldn't have the situation. Their outcomes would have been very different. The focus was on their physical health and everything else was secondary or irrelevant. Their reality is the reality of so many children in child-headed households or abusive environments. This, in my research, can lead to physical and mental illnesses in the future. In these cases, it becomes a generational cycle that is perpetuated if these psychological issues are not addressed. What is clear is that it's crucial to understand the importance of mental health support for children in challenging situations and take action so they receive the care that they need. My story and Mpho's story are intertwined. I have a personal experience of struggling with my mental health from when I was a child because of my upbringing to when I was in university, and also when I reached what I thought was the pinnacle of success. I know for sure that anyone, irrespective of their background or where they come from or their standing, can struggle with their mental health. It does not discriminate. The impact of my childhood on my mental health has been an uphill battle that I cannot move forward without correcting. In my case, at almost every pivotal moment of my life, the neglect of my mental health in my childhood has been the biggest stumbling block of my success. My story, like Mpho's story, is one of resilience, but I live with my story as one of triumph. But I cannot ignore that it has also affected my psychological and physical health. My village was a village where conversations around mental health were considered a taboo. People who lived with mental illnesses were vilified or tormented or even embarrassed. Words like useless, stupid, or crazy were thrown around when speaking about people with mental illnesses. But these stories not only reflect my community, but so many others. In my heart, I carry the stories of Mpho. I carry the stories of my aunt. I carry my story and many others. Stories of struggle and resilience, dreams deferred and hopes unfulfilled. But these stories all started with the neglect of mental health and a lack of education around the true scope of what true health is, and how all parts of us, our health and our stories, need to be accounted for. From the earliest days of my youth, service has not been an abstract idea, but a tangible reality, embodied by the most influential figure in my life, my grandmother, my Gugu. In our village, she embodied service and compassion. She was an impressive figure who shaped my understanding of what it truly means to serve. Among those she helped was Mpho, and that's how her story became the driving force, one of the driving forces behind my need to serve. As a result, I made a promise to myself when I first entered Miss South Africa, which was a perceptively unattainable leap for a girl like me, to dedicate my reign to starting conversations around mental health issues and beginning the mindful movement. In keeping with my word, as Miss South Africa and post that, I hosted an online series on my Instagram and other social media platforms titled #MindfulMondays. Each week, in partnership with the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADC, I invited mental health professionals who freely donated their time and resources to educating everyone around mental health awareness. We looked at everything from bipolar disorder to anxiety to depression to teenage suicides. Nothing was off limits. This impact was profound. We had over 1 million viewers in just 8 months. The feedback cultivated mental health conversations, not just in South Africa, but globally, inspiring hope and a sense of community. My work then allowed me to assume my current role as the first regional champion for the UNFPA for East and Southern Africa. Through this work and the stories I carry, I realized that mental health is a crucial part of sexual and reproductive health, and that it plays a significant role in human beings exercising their fundamental human rights. These stories that I'm sharing with you today let us realize something that's absolutely important. Health is a right and not a privilege. And that is health at its fullest, a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease or infirmity as defined by the WHO. In pursuit of using storytelling as an advocacy tool, I've made sure to use my voice as someone who has suffered from mental torment and stress. I wrote a book titled Shudufhadzo Magic, and another one that was published last year titled I Am Shudu, Finding My Voice and Knowing My Strength. The point of this book was to introduce mental health education at early childhood development level, and also addressing the mental health of children who are experiencing bullying like I did. These books capture my own mental health as a way to break the cycles moving forward for children like me so they can feel encouraged to share their stories. The success of these initiatives has had a far-reaching impact, and I've been so blessed to go on the ground and speak to the children and the different people who have watched Mindful Mondays. My favorite thing is going into schools and speaking to children and asking them questions around what they learned from the book. The most important lesson that they tell me that they've learned is to be kind, which is something that we often forget as adults. Kindness is the foundation of everything. The second thing I ask is, what have you learned from this book? Two stories that stand out to me is a little girl at one of the schools who said, I asked her, what do you do when you're sad or angry? She's like, my mommy told me to speak about it and it will get wrapped up and get thrown in a magical river and float away. What do we call that as adults? Therapy, right? And then I asked a boy, what do you do when you're sad or angry? He said to me, I punch a pillow. And then I was like, okay, I think it's better to speak to your parents or someone that you trust. And he actually got angry at that suggestion. He's 7 years old. But this shows the importance of introducing mental health education for all children because they're never too young to start. We need to give them a seat at the table. Another story that lives with me is when I was flying back from Kenya. I landed at 1 a.m. and then I needed to fly to Cape Town at 8 a.m. I was so exhausted, I hadn't slept in weeks, and my mental health was actually not doing too great. One of the flight attendants on the flight kept on looking at me, and I was wondering why. So eventually he walks up to me and he says, thank you. I'm like, what do you mean, thank you? He said, in 2021, I was retrenched, I was suicidal, and I was depressed. I didn't know what to do. I had to move in back with my mother because of everything that was happening. He said that Mindful Mondays encouraged him to try again because he realized that he wasn't alone. He realized that he was seen and that it was okay to not be okay. As he's telling me all of these things, I'm moved to tears because he didn't realize something in that moment. He was making me feel seen too. He also validated the one thing I now know to be true. Mental health is the foundation of all empowerment and the catalyst to the growth of communities. Mental health is explicitly foundational to sustainable development, and it is crucial that we all become enlightened and aware of this fact. I am where I am today because of an investment in my mental health, but it is not lost on me how mental health and health in general is a privilege due to affordability and accessibility, but it does not reach those who need it most. Without health, mental health specifically, we cannot achieve the SDGs. This is not just a matter of personal well-being, but it is a crucial factor in achieving our global goals. As I share these stories with you today, I am trying to illustrate one thing. Mpho is me, and I am her. The difference in the stories is when investment is made into health, mental health specifically, and when it is not done. What is clear from my village is that people fear what they do not know. Mindful Mondays highlighted how the outcomes can change when we educate a society on their mental health. So here's my call to action to all of you. What I learned through my partnership with SADC and Mindful Mondays was that we need to invest more into mental health. These organizations on the ground are freely donating their time to save so many lives. You can call them at 2 a.m. and there's someone on the other side to answer, and a life is saved time and time again. During COVID, the number of calls on the suicide helpline doubled. And what I realized through speaking to different organizations, not just SADC, is that they need support. So this is a call to the private sector, governments, all of us sitting in this room. This conversation cannot just end here as we sit here. We need to take it forward. Lobby for more mental health conversations, support groups on the ground, because in my village, it's still a foreign conversation. When I speak to, well, he passed away now, God bless his soul, my favorite person was my grandfather. I would speak to him about my mental health, and he was the only person that could validate how I felt. To everyone else, it's like, what do you have to be sad about? What do you have to be anxious about? But we need to have more of these conversations on the ground. The second thing is prioritizing our own mental health. During COVID, I was speaking to my therapist and I was telling her I'm extremely overwhelmed. And she says it starts with me, checking in with myself, taking walks. To understand your own health and to be educated on your own health is where it starts. It starts with the balance between physical and psychological well-being. So, it's a personal responsibility that we can all take control of, and starting in our homes. And this is a call to action that we should all heed. Empowering the mind is to empower a firm foundation based on autonomy. With autonomy comes power, and with power comes the opportunity for progress. I call the mind the powerhouse, the tool that has the ability to change narratives and lives in our society. For any change to come about in our societies, we need to start with the mind, because if we do not, we will live in a society that has low levels of self-awareness. As such, I have always believed that achieving the SDG goals starts with empowering the minds and the health of all individuals. Thank you.